true to what you said on paper.
Well, welcome back to At the Round Table with MAMLEO. A very spirited conversation this morning. Folks are up and early, and they're up in arms, as they should. I'm not talking about physical arms, but just, I always say, Brother Rhodes. Good morning. Brother Rhodes is here with me. Good morning.
Good morning.
He slid in here a little late. I had to sign his.
Yes, it's something about maintaining and keeping up with the system.
Yeah, keeping up with the Joneses.
Yeah.
I get it.
They don't print any more time, so the time's like one commodity that you just cannot replace.
I get you. I understand. I'm not mad at you, brother.
Hey.
Good morning, Pastor House. How are you, sir?
Phenomenal.
I'm a little jumpy. He got me some coffee with caffeine in it. I'm like, thank you, sir. I appreciate you. And on the line, the other part of the crew, Helen is there. And Helen, good morning. Helen, how are you?
Hey, good morning. Doing all right.
And
the snow's coming down even harder now.
I know. My wife just sent me a text. Make sure you shovel when you get home.
Well, you don't have a snowblower?
I do. It's called me.
Be careful going on the road.
No, we have someone that comes and does it, but she's having Valentine's parties for the girls today, so we come and they usually come later, so it's just a little, push that out the way.
That's nice. I still got my old-fashioned shovel, one for the ice and one for the snow.
And good morning, Dr. Bradley. Good morning, my brother.
Good morning, my brother. It's nice to be here. But I got Helen's text about the Black Statue of Liberty. Helen, you can talk to me, and I'll show you exactly what the original Statue of Liberty looked like when it was originally designed.
Yeah, if you have that, please send it to me.
Put in the whole group text.
The group text, so we can share that
I hadn't heard that before until you mentioned it. So I started looking it up
on our Facebook page.
Yeah, when you see this, what you will see is a black woman with a lantern in her hand and shackles on her arms and broken chain at her feet. Those chains are still there today because when the designer displayed it to the American leadership, they said absolutely not. The person has to have more European features, and the designer used his mother as the sample to actually put on as the face of the Statue of Liberty. So the Statue of Liberty was really originally designed to honor the end of the slavery institution in America.
So we should come get together and get our own statue of that original one.
The original one.
Right.
Well, I guess America just changed it. They say give us your tired, your weak, and your poor, so we can abuse them a little more.
Right. No, give us your tired.
Now we can kick them out too, like we call them immigrants, but the original immigrants. This is quote unquote colonizers.
Right. Where, what's concerning is why really people are, we're slipping into this fascism. We're already there, right?
Yes,
that people are going to start to ignore our criminal justice system in a sense, right? I mean, it was very telling. I don't know if Dr. Bradley, Helen, you're the judge, and I forget even what state it was, but basically he said, normally when federal prosecutors come in and presenting a case, they're giving a deference of believability, and he said that is no longer the case. Pastor Hobbs call it, and that is no longer the case any longer because of all the lies they come in with, right?
Yes.
And one of the from what was reported, one of the U.S. attorneys, assistant U.S. attorneys, said to the judge, just hold me in contempt, put me in jail, so I don't have to continue to go out here and bring these lies to the court. That's very telling of where we are in this country, So it's really sad that
when the truth becomes the enemy of the state.
You make a good point about federal investigations in courts, because when we were just talking about all that COVID money that was supposed to go towards schools, and then also now we're seeing the surprise, $135 million or around that much for White Stadium.
Yeah.
I'm kind of starting to wonder, it's like, should somebody be asking for an audit of the city of Boston?
Well, the state auditor has been asking for one at the state level, and there's been a lot of pushback because I guess folks don't want that to be known. And this is a good segue because on the line is Senator Nick Collins, the state senator. I'm not, and I always get it's second Suffolk Senator Collins. Are you representing
First
Suffolk? That's why I know he's always number one. You're number one in my book, Senator. And today he's going to be having a community forum. We've announced it earlier at the Greenwood Memorial United Methodist Church at 10 a.m. today, and I'll be in attendance this morning as well. Senator, I'm glad to call you. I wish I could call you my senator, but I'm glad to call you a friend and a friend of the broadcast, because one thing I've found with you, Senator, and there's very few people like you, there are a few others like City Councilor Flynn, who are truth brokers, who tell people whether they want to hear it, what they need to know. And thank you for coming on this morning. I know we'll get a little bit more of that. But also, Senator, I wanted to get your take on, I don't know if you've been listening to the broadcast, we've been talking about the education system here in Boston. And I'm not sure who at the State House is overseeing the education, because Boston here, Senator, you know, you live in here, you have children here. We've got to do something with this. We're spending all this exorbitant amount of money, over $1.7 billion at the state level, another $400 and something million from COVID, another $22 million of infusion from the state. And now they're saying that a third of our kids in Boston, the seniors, most likely won't be able to graduate this year because they're not even proficient in the basics here. What's going on here, sir?
Well, it's a great question, and I can talk a little bit about what we're doing about it.
Yeah.
So the state, in combination of education dollars and unrestricted government aid, provides the city about $500 million a year.
Wow.
Which, the biggest budget item for the city is education, and we know a lot of that is, up for debate about whether it gets to the classroom. I mean, we're hearing about cuts at the local level that on each school site they're being asked to be made, and with the exercise of belt tightening, that's always something we should be thinking about. But you point out the federal funding. We had one time, and we knew it was one time, at the risk of inflation, and we knew that it was at the risk of inflation. We got $1 billion from the federal government. And so the city's budget grew $1 billion over the last 4 years from those federal funds without a sustainable way to pay for it. And now, that's how they end up backing into a tax increase. And we'll get to that in a second.
Yes.
But on education...
Did we lose you, Senator?
Hello?
No, hello.
Oh, okay, good.
Okay, go ahead.
There's some background. Sorry.
No.
With respect to the education, we identified that, particularly in the aftermath of the pandemic, literacy rates have dropped significantly. And so we just passed legislation last week that would increase the standards, provide early interventions, and from the millionaire's tax, provide funding, strategic funding to the school districts to intervene, because we have seen our children at the elementary level and the middle school level fall behind. And so there's no surprise that by the time they get to graduation in high school that they're behind without those interventions. And so we really need to make a conscious effort to start these efforts early and not let things go too far, because our children that we're trying to prepare for adulthood and to have successful lives are not being served. And that's something that we've identified. And it's not just Boston, but statewide. But obviously, Boston's the biggest school district, the biggest
miseducation.
City.
Yeah, and so according to the mayor, with these property taxes reassessing people's property, she seems like she's indicating that most of us in Boston who live here, homeowners, are millionaires now, right? We'll be hit with that tax.
Well, yeah, and I think it is about priorities. I mean, I just heard the mention about White Stadium.
Yeah,
that's not $135 million from the taxpayers. That's $135 million from the taxpayers. That's coming out of the Boston Public Schools budget.
Oh,
so
wow.
while we're talking about potential cuts, $53 million cuts, those funds are coming out of the Boston Public School budget. That's not even general appropriation.
So Senator Collins, you're saying that Michelle Wu, as the mayor of the city, took money from the kids' education and is funneling into White Stadium.
Yeah, what I'm saying is that
so that our listeners understand that she's basically taking money away from educating the kids of the city, so that she can build her stadium. Wow.
Yes. It's $135 million right now. We expect it to grow.
Yes.
And,
yes.
The other part about it that I think everyone agrees that White Stadium should be upgraded, and it should be for the public school students and the public. And if there's a partnership that can work, fine. But a public subsidy of that kind, we've never even seen before. And especially when the state is coming in to pick up half the tab on Madison Park's reconstruction that still isn't off the ground, and they still can't pin that down. You'd think that would be the priority. So, I mean, that's what we're talking about. So while there are cuts being discussed and capital investments needed for our schools, that sort of funding that's being taken away from the Boston Public Schools to put towards this exercise. And the other part is, what in the aftermath, like what I'd like to see is better bus service, not a private shuttle service for people who go to games and concerts. Yeah. For instance, whether it's a big development project or the soccer stadium that's even outside the city in Everett, the city and we've, and things in my district, we fight to get better bus service and investments in the T for everybody, not a separate but equal private shuttle service.
Right. So, Senator, let me ask you, why do we need two soccer stadiums in close proximity to each other, next to a casino? In a small condensed area like Boston is not huge. We've had all that development, which is good in the seaport, but it seems like we're bursting at the seams, right? We're trying to put into, an infrastructure where it's just not feasible. And on top of that, we're asking taxpayers and particularly homeowners, because you pointed out very well in a previous broadcast where the commercial property in rentals have gone down considerably. As a matter of fact, they've got a rebate in a sense on what they're paying, and that is being absorbed by homeowners. In just one of my properties alone, it went up $400 last year per quarter. Now it's another $600, so that's $1,000. In less than
none of that needed to happen, because the city's also sitting on $552 million of surplus funds. Right. And if you recall, in 2022, when that happened at the state level, the state gave back in the form of a rebate funds to the taxpayer. And so I want to get to the tax rules that we passed in the Senate recently, because I do think it's important.
Yes.
But also know that the soccer team is building a brand new practice facility in Brockton with their own private money, not a penny coming from the taxpayers of Brockton. And on top of that, they're in at least temporary agreements to play at Foxborough prior to wherever they end up next. And then with all that being said, even though the soccer stadium in Everett is outside of Boston, the city fought for and through arbitration or mediation and got a pretty good deal, tens of millions of dollars in public infrastructure investments.
So Senator, let me ask you,
in the public at large,
right?
And right now, we're talking about painting a bus lane from JFK Station to Franklin Park for private shuttles for the soccer stadium.
Right.
Senator Collins, do you think it was interesting the fact that when it came to Wu's re-election, Kraft dropped out right before, and then shortly thereafter, then this deal goes through?
Well, I think there's a lot of interesting intersections, but one of them is, did you hear about getting your property tax increases at all last year during the mayor's race?
No, or more schools closing than they initially talked about. Dr. Bradley, I want you to weigh in on this, because I think, in what you've just heard the senator say, because it's got to be a little troubling. Dr. Bradley?
Yes, I'm sorry. I was actually on mute.
No.
But I didn't hear everything that the senator said. I'm sorry.
Well, he was talking about just to recap, he was talking about, the tax increase, and also this whole thing about the funding that the soccer team is getting. They're building a practice facility in Brockton where the Brockton is not chipping in anything for that, but it seems to be the brunt of their enjoyment is from the burden on the taxpayers here in the city of Boston. And there doesn't seem to be any relief coming. I know, Senator, you're going to talk about in a second.
Right, and I think it's important to note these aren't even revenues taken out of the surplus. The city would be floating bonds to borrow money, $135 million.
Whoa.
So if you think about it, it came into the same. We had in December, after the legislature went out of session, the mayor, we need to pursue this tax thing again, because we're going to raise taxes like days, and we obviously knew that the the new number was probably already known. So now the number escalates again to $135 million. It seems to go up $50 million
in increments, right?
Month.
right.
So and then all of a sudden the tax increases announced. So
and Senator, we know we have a reference point right from the big dig. It started at $2 billion, and by the time the project was finished, it was over $22 billion. So we know that if it's already gone up $35 million, right? We know that is only going to continue to increase. And where is that coming from? What is it at the state level that can be done? Because I thought the Prop 2.5 was supposed to be able to control cities and towns from gouging taxpayers. Explain that a little.
So this is what we've done. But I think you did a great point on the big dig, and this is what happened to the big dig in the aftermath. Same deal. Once the federal government cut off the spigot, they said, "All right, state of Massachusetts, you take this on." And there was a decision made long before my time in the legislature to put it on. About 30 years, and we're about coming up to that. We basically saddled the T with big dig debt for 30 years, annually making massive. Interest and principal payments that would otherwise have gone to T investments and services. So that's what we're talking about. Like, not only is this $135 million, it's going to be a burden for 30 years. That'll be a 30-year obligation with bonds that are just with interest attached to it. So the real cost is probably. Like today, if you're looking at it over the course of a 30-year
and add in
mortgage,
inflation,
it's probably 150, 160 all day long. And what we did do at the state level was pass tax relief. And in the last go-around with the mayor's home rule petition, that was deeply flawed, and we know why. It's not, I have a gut instinct or I have a guess. Mayor Menino tried this 21 years ago. He did it for a year and abandoned it, and there's a reason why. He wasn't getting as much on commercial that he thought he was going to get because similarly now that those values were cascading in certain areas of the city. Meanwhile, small businesses were not because they're in one-story retail doing fine or not losing value or not above of them is an empty office building. It's residential. So their property value didn't change, but their tax obligations went up dramatically. So you squeeze a ton onto the small businesses. And all that meant was, in the aggregate, on their commercial hopes and dreams, they didn't get as much as they had hoped, so they put it further back on the residential. So Menino ran away from
what they call, the payment in lieu of
you wouldn't
taxes,
believe.
right?
And so, in science, when you have an experiment that fails, you don't continue to do the same experiment.
I think they call that insanity, Senator.
Yeah.
So just doing the same thing, expecting a different result.
We have a reference point. And there's a great book called The March of Folly, where it talks about people in the history of the world who did things they knew were going to deliver the same result that somebody else did, and it led to the fall of societies, and you just don't do that.
Well, Senator, I think also to your point there, right? If anyone has done, because I actually happen to live in Foxborough, right? And I can tell you when there's a soccer match going on, you barely know it's even taking place. So I'm not sure where they feel there's an interest. Maybe they think because folks in the city, there might be more of an interest because of the changing of the population here. And a lot of folks who've come to this country, soccer is a big sport. It's the largest around the country, around the world, but not here. I have yet to see maybe no more than 5,000 or 6,000 people. I mean, compared to a Patriots game.
Right. So no, it's very true. And the teams are tough to continue. As franchises, there's not a lot of.
And what do you do? And what do you do with those facilities in the winter months? Because this is not a tropical state.
Well, that's the interesting part. So, like, if anybody thinks that the city or the soccer team is going to make a penny off of 20 soccer games a year from their investment, it's about concerts and events. So that is what we're really staring at. But I think the other point is Foxborough has a ton of parking down there. There's zero. They're taking away. They're saying there's going to be no parking at Franklin Park. So what I think we've done to address in the Senate, what we did take up because it was important, we passed property tax relief, increased benefits, increased exemptions for seniors and personal property tax owners, along with rebate authorization like we did at the state level a number of years ago. So to offset the city's tax increase, we would be able to and this legislation is now before the House of Representatives for consideration and final approval. And this was in concert with Councilor Brian Worrell.
Would that be retroactive, Senator, to the increases that have taken place, or would that be going forward?
No, so this is, well, if the House acts in short order, because this has already been in committees since the beginning of last January 2025, and it's been passed by the City Council and approved by the Mayor on the senior property tax relief, personal property tax relief, and rebates. So, like, now the city seems resistant on something they already approved because it didn't include the tax increase that they were looking to tack on. So, what the dates for this, when people file for their exemptions, it's April 1st. So there's definitely still time to get this done in time for the regular cycle. And rebates can be authorized at any point. If you recall, last year, the city drew $110 million from the surplus funds to put towards private development of new affordable housing starts for future residents. So it's not a sacred cow. They've shown their willingness to draw from it. What the rating agency suggests is one-time, short-term use of it, so it's not a sustainable, similar to the ARPA funds. One-time use. Don't tack it into your budget and act like it's going to be there forever, because it's
like
not.
They did with COVID.
So exactly, and so issuing rebates to offset the property tax increase people felt would be for everybody, whereas the senior property tax relief, we did increase the income limit, the asset limit, and the benefit, but it would be for seniors, which is incredibly important because most seniors that own their homes are on fixed income,
right? And
they're seeing these property tax bills go up and up. And I want to get to why that is, not just the motivation to do it by the city, but particularly how it's happening and what we can do about it.
Yeah.
And
so, Senator, before you go, I want to get Dr. Bradley's and Helen's, but I want to start with Dr. Bradley, get their response to what you've said so far. Dr. Bradley?
Well, my response is clear. As he's speaking, I'm saying to myself, this is a clear mismanagement of funds here. And it seems to me, just as Dr. speaking here, it seems to me that there's a frontal attack from the city, by the city, on those individuals who are on fixed income to get them out of the city. And they're using their taxing power to do that. Because other than that, it makes absolutely no sense.
Yes.
To tax people at this rate, Larry.
No,
that's my hit.
I agree. Helen?
So I would ask actually the senators, like, what can the state do about it, considering the fact that it looks like from what you mentioned that the mayor or in her administration is taking money from the Boston Public Schools, money that's intended for the Boston Public Schools, and taking it towards essentially a private project to a degree of renovating White Stadium. So then that's federal money, that's state money. What can be done to audit in terms of holding accountable and some form of compliance with regard to this money that's being diverted, and essentially who knows where it's going, and it's not going to where it's intended to go.
Right.
Is what it sounds like.
Good question. So it would be borrowed funds by the city on the backs of taxpayers. So it's essentially using the full faith and credit of the taxpayers of Boston to float bonds to pay for this. And so it wouldn't actually. You'd mentioned
before that it looked like the money that she was taking that was intended for the schools was going to the stadium. Can you speak a little bit more about that?
Yes. So they would float. They would be floating bonds to borrow funds that would be going through the capital, through the BPS budget. So it would be BPS funding, but it would not be coming from the federal allocation or the state allocation. It would be strictly through the city's tools. But yes, it would be diverted from the Boston Public Schools budget to this project. And what can be done about it is the council has to approve this, and annually they have to approve the budgets. And I know that they're taking a look at this. I believe there's a commission filed by Councilor Culpepper recently that's taking a look at this. And this is before the Supreme Judicial Court, and for a number of reasons. One, the the use of Franklin Park, which is historic open green space, and the assets around it. Take away White Stadium for a second, because in order to get into White Stadium and commercialize the place, you need to essentially use parkland and parkways for commercial purposes, which is not allowed under the Article 97 of the Constitution, particularly in environmental justice communities, without what's called Article 97 action. And that typically includes having a major give back of public land in exchange for that, public open space, which hasn't happened, as well as going through a legislative process that would establish that mitigation. And that would require Parks Commission approval, unanimous Conservation Commission approval, 2/3 of the council, 2/3 of the legislature.
So that matter is before the court currently?
That matter is before the Supreme Judicial Court.
Okay.
What happened after the first round, because it's been challenged by the Franklin Park Defenders and the Emerald Necklace Conservancy, it was going to appeals court, and the Supreme Judicial Court came in like a seagull grabbing a French fry at Castle Island and said, "Nope, we're gonna take this up at the higher level here because we see some constitutional issues that have to be addressed." And that doesn't happen often, and so that's before the court. I believe we will see some sort of decision on that. I would imagine, given the time crunch that the city is under to try to, move forward on this sometime this spring. But I would like to get to how the tax increases have gone up. So the council has a vote on tax rates annually in December, and that's a tax rate that everyone pays. It's the commercial rate's twice the residential rate, and everybody who's got a residential property pays the same residential rate. Where the inequity comes into play is in neighborhoods like Dorchester, Mattapan, Roxbury, Hyde Park, South End, even South Boston proper, not the waterfront. In my district, the places that I've represented or continue or represent now, they've seen double-digit increases in their valuation by the city, not their market value, which is different. That's something you test in the private market when you decide to sell your home or remodel your home, and you're looking for, a home equity loan, and if you're trying to draw revenue out of your home. For those who are just living in their home, not making any real significant investments, and just living in their home, they're seeing, and a lot of people on fixed income are seeing the city's assessing department unilaterally increase the valuation of their property to increase their tax bill.
I'm a recipient of that.
Across the board, even though that's wrong, you'd say, okay, there's at least fairness, but it's not. So what we're seeing in Back Bay and Beacon Hill, for instance, here's a really eye-popping example. I think we discussed a couple weeks ago. In November, a property in Back Bay, a townhouse on Commonwealth Avenue, was sold for $21 million. Now, if you own a home like that, you're probably a millionaire or a billionaire.
Right.
The city says,
you can afford the taxes.
Make them pay their fair share.
Right.
But the city assessed it on January 1st of this year for taxation purposes at 10.5, literally half.
Wow.
So while those folks are getting 50% tax cut, thanks to the city, neighborhoods like Dorchester, Mattapan, Roxbury,
Hyde Park
going up 10%, up to the ceiling of market value. Now, one thing that we try to pursue and that we're pursuing legislatively is if we need revenue, we should be looking at the places that don't pay any tax at all, that are big institutions in the city. So we're pursuing that, but also limiting how much the city can raise valuations on people year over year, unless there's a sale of the home or major new construction.
Right.
Because while they seem to be getting away with, year over year increase in valuations at the same rate, your bill's going up, that it's unfair. While these folks in other parts of in wealthier parts of Boston are getting a 50% tax cut.
No, to that point, Senator, you're right on target, and I want to grab these comments because I want to get your take on those as well. Is that you're right? If some senior bought a home for, let's say, $100,000, and they haven't moved and they've been there for the last 30 years, and all of a sudden now their property is assessed at $800,000-$900,000, it's one thing if I bought it at that price today, I expect to pay taxes based on what I purchased it for, so that shouldn't come as a shock. But it is a shock when you didn't pay anywhere near that, and now the assessed value is not real value because you are not profiting from that assessed value that the city has tacked on there. And this is, in my opinion, because I've seen it in my properties here. I wanted to Pastor Hobbs read these comments and then get your response, yours as well as Helen's on the other side.
Our caller Michelle is saying that the taxes are high because the value of the city puts on our homes. An example, 200,000 more. The city is robbing us blind. She says she also called Senator Collins' office with regard to the abatement, and no one's got back to her as of yet.
This is Michelle.
This is a young lady who tunes in faithfully to the broadcast.
Okay. So, Senator, what's your response? I know it's response to the call, the message there.
I had a hard time hearing it a little bit. If you
can repeat that, Pastor Hobbs?
Sure. So she said the taxes are high because of the value that the city puts on our homes. An example, $200,000 more. The city is robbing us blind. She is a homeowner, and she said she also did call your office with regard to the abatement, and no one's gotten back to her yet.
Thank you for that, Michelle. Counselor, your response?
I'm sorry,
Senator,
I didn't hear that last part.
She said she called your office and left a message, and no one has gotten back to her with regard to the abatement that you talked about.
Well, I don't know how that happened. We've been helping dozens of people in the last few weeks on that, so if you want to leave her number, we can definitely get back to her. We also, in the legislation, moved to extend the period of time people have. Right now, they have 30 days from January 1st, which is crazy. So we extended in the legislation for it to be 75 days, so people have time to do that, absorb what the assessed value was, and to prepare their application. But no, in the last couple of weeks, we've been helping dozens of people, so we're happy to help anybody that is in need of assistance.
Senator, I think that speaks to how big this problem is, right? That people are overwhelmed, right? Because on top of everything else, the cost of food, matter of fact, gas is now heading in the wrong direction at the pumps. Electric bills, and there's no relief. All of those subsidies and that assistance has been cut at the federal level, right? And so people are starting to feel that pinch. And this is an election at the state level. I know you're running for re-election. Honestly, you have my support because you've been there for your constituents. What can folks do, Senator, to help with they're looking for our elected officials. We're not getting any help at the city level. The mayor has stacked the deck literally, where she has no pushback from the majority of the city council, not all, but the majority of them, to anything that she wants to do. This is really no different than Donald Trump at the federal level with, Republicans having control of all three branches of the government. Senator?
Oh, yes. No, I think, what people have to do is continue to get to the polls. What we can't have is apathy. I think what happens with folks is, they feel, sort of down or
defeated,
apathetic because they feel like it's not, in their control. Where at the local and state level, you have more ability to affect things than
all politics are local.
National level,
all politics are local.
Exactly, and so, what I have made a mission to accomplish is to try to help as many people as I can by standing by the right policies, not getting, pushed around by rhetoric or also having blind loyalty to a person. I think it's the first commandment, if I'm not mistaken. So, what we're about is making sure that this makes sense for people.
Yeah.
On the economics. Right now, it doesn't. So we're pursuing legislation to mitigate these outrageous utility bills, and the utilities are going to be held accountable on that. But what's going on right now is outrageous.
Yeah.
And on the cost of housing, like I said, we put forth significant property tax relief that is before the House, and the city should support it.
Yeah.
Because it would bring relief to the taxpayers in a sensible way. But we're also pursuing legislation to hit reset on its assessments, where
so,
we have the burden being picked up by the middle class in Boston unfairly, and so getting the wealthy to pay their fair share means having their valuations accurate and not, overvaluing people's homes in middle class Boston, which has been done quietly, because I think it's combination of, well, people probably just accept it and move on and eat it and da 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 da.
Yeah.
Whereas the folks who have lawyers on retainer will
fight
on the city,
so,
and that's where we come in. We are the advocates for the people, and that's what we're going to continue to do.
Right.
And I think that people have an ally, an independent ally in me, and I hope they see that, and we're going to continue to make that case. But with this tax relief that's before the House, we think that it's sensible. It's already been approved in part by the city and the mayor. This will be a statewide option.
Right. So,
but
Senator,
real tax relief that we passed, that the people have asked for, and that they deserve.
Senator, Dr. Bradley had a question for you. Dr. Bradley?
Thank you, Larry. I was wondering if there's any oversight at the state level when it comes down to the city making their tax evaluation, because this issue about selling the condo for $21 million and tax evaluation is $10 million seems to be really unfair to me. Is there anyone at the state level to actually hold them accountable for that?
Yes, we are moving to create a commission that's going to zero in on this. And right now, there's something else that's going on. In addition to the abatements that are being filed, there's a class action lawsuit against the city currently for overvaluation. And this happened in the late 70s, and the city lost a class action lawsuit at the Supreme Judicial Court. It was called the Traeger versus the Boston Board of Assessors. And they got nailed for doing just this. And what's interesting is they decided to, over the course of time, I'm sure they initially stayed away from that for a couple of decades, because what happened, the city had to float bonds, get legislation passed in the State House to float bonds to pay everybody back that they overcharged. So
the taxpayers usually taking it on the chin.
And they basically admitted to it recently in the paper, saying, "Yeah, we're going to stop doing this right now while the court case is going on." While the court case is going on, shouldn't be doing it at all. But so right now that's a level of accountability that we're looking at, and I think what transpired over the last several decades that has changed in recent times is they decided to go back to that practice. And so people in there had changed over, and they felt like that they had more ability to do that, because this is what takes place. This is why we've been advocating for families that have come to us saying, "Hey, we'd like to get some help doing filing these abatements," because what oftentimes happens is that the city's assessing department will really push back on people to get them to not do that, and to say, "Hey, we could increase this further. You don't want to do that," so they scare people who aren't necessarily equipped with outside advocates to do that. And so we're there to help, and we have been there to help people get through that and say, look, if you're going to get your fair shake, maybe not with the city's assessing department, where that first level appeal is, but at the state appellate tax board, which is where you get an independent body that was not involved in your evaluation, that looks at it objectively, gives you the fair shake and lowers your tax bill.
So, Senator,
and that's happened,
I want to jump. I want to jump. I know Hill had a question, but I want to just get quickly, if you can explain to our listening audience, because folks have the misunderstanding that Prop 2.5 limits the amount that the city can raise taxes, and they're confused about why they can go as high as they have gone, which is over the 2.5 without a 2.5 override.
Well, so the 2.5 number is about the aggregate. So if last year the city raised $100 in tax revenue, the following year they can raise $102.50 in tax revenue.
Okay.
And so how that gets broken down is there's a balance of commercial, which is twice the rate of residential, and residential. And so what the city does is they they pursue the max levy at 2.5, which they don't have to, but they do, but they don't have to. There's not a law. There's no law saying you have to raise taxes to the max levy, and then back into it by assigning valuation and then rate.
Mm.
That's where that valuation becomes key. The rate is actually the third thing that gets decided. It's how much money they want to raise, or how much taxes they want to bring in, and then they assign valuations to property, and then that delivers a rate.
Yeah.
So that's where this also gets dealt with and I believe manipulated is we're assigning valuations to get to a number. Not we have a budget that we have to cover, and we should raise revenue to
based
do
on that, not based on what,
and then have our debate on rate.
right.
And so, that to me is the biggest inequity going on in the city is how the city's valuating properties of middle class homeowners versus the
Senator,
wealthy, and the tax breaks that are being delivered for that.
Senator, I want to sneak in some of these texters that are saying, it says, we need this information every day. The senator is not afraid to tell the truth. He is a leader helping us in Boston. This has to be every day. It says, who else is doing this for us? That's a testament to the work that you and your office are doing. And then Pastor Hobbs, I think you had a comment there.
Actually, it's a comment with regard just to the station, the urgency to your point about us being on the air. We're really at a really
Crucial
desperate time right now for us to continue even to have this platform.
Right.
We actually were off the air literally one day this week, and we did a little payment plan that we could just stretch it. But people need to understand the real urgency for them to support the station. And again, if Senator or other folks can even help us to be able to connect to grants, or this is the only black-owned FCC licensed multimedia platform that we have this kind of conversation that we need now more than ever. So I just want to underscore the urgency for people to support the station.
Absolutely. And Senator, that's a lot of it's the lack of knowledge, right? And that is why they don't want broadcasts like this, why these conversations with you and others like Councilor Flynn and a few others who are willing to tell their constituents the truth, right? Even if it's hard, at least they know what they're dealing with. We're not talking about millions of dollars. But when we look at it in the scheme of things, we're wasting money on projects that don't really benefit the community. And a station like this will. Is there any funding out there that you're aware of that could help with keeping this station alive? Because I think if it goes, a lot of this information definitely goes by the wayside as well.
Yeah, you bring up a great point. And news that people can trust, right? Because we know that stuff gets manipulated all the time. It's even worse today than it's ever been because of the social media stuff, AI, and this and that. And I think the public service that you provide, the public information that was done as well during the pandemic and public health, announcements for public service is definitely a case to be made. And that's something we can definitely help you guys with, because I do believe, your objectivity and, look, there's a cry now for, and I've had, at different community meetings, people ask, hey, the federal government's cutting funding for WTBH or PBS, would the state be willing to step up and support that? And I said, yeah, look, I think it's important to have public access, but we should also be looking at the local public access, which is, coming in without filter and without, corporate, intervention. And so I think it's incredibly important to have, community programs like this that are accessible, particularly, this radio show and other community outlets that are delivering the facts to people in a way that they trust.
Right. Informing, not just entertaining, and that's a good segue. Council, you have a community meeting scheduled this morning. I will be in attendance. Can you tell folks a little bit about what your objective is today in engaging in the community, as you always do? But what is it that people hope to take away from today's community forum?
Well, yeah, it's a monthly meeting that takes place. It's a group of civic organizations, and really just to talk about the tax relief options that are on the table, talk about the resources and the legislation that's been delivered on behalf of the community, and to get feedback as well as some ideas for improvements, and to hear from people about how they feel about the governor's budget proposal that we're going to be taking up in the legislature. That's going to be a value set and what we're going to prioritize this year, because we know that people are feeling the pressure, and we want to make sure that we're delivering on the priorities that they need, and to just be there to take constituent inquiries like this, like the individual who called this radio show that's looking for assistance, and to be available, but also to show people that we've been with the statistics that we've been delivering for the district, programming and capital investment, as well as legislation that serves the people and where they think we can do better.
Okay, let's grab
Senator
these comments.
Collins, can you speak a little bit more about? You mentioned that there was a class action lawsuit. I know that in New York City, there were a number of residents that had filed a class action lawsuit against unfair practices with assessment of their property values, in a very similar situation to what you mentioned, where it ended up in a disproportionate effect on lower income families versus higher income areas of the city, and they had filed a class action lawsuit as well. Do you have more for our listeners and for the residents of the city that are being disparately impacted, and how they can participate in this class action lawsuit?
Sure. I think there's currently a class action with commercial properties, and there's one brewing with residential. So as that gets more alive and real before that gets filed, and even afterwards, people can sign on to it. I think that
an amicus brief, is that possible
now,
Senator?
Feeling know that this is being done that's in an unfair fashion.
Should they be contacting your office if they wanted more information on this, or if they wanted to participate and provide information?
If they feel their home's been overvalued and that this is happening to them, they should definitely call our office, 617-722-1150.
Senator, I want to grab these comments for you because we're running short on time, but that's a great question, Helen. I think also, maybe some type of form of amicus brief on behalf of the residents here in the city of Boston to be filed, and showing their displeasure with this and their inability to be able to afford it. Pastor Hobbs, you have some comments there?
We do. Michelle said the polls is failing us the same because we vote folks in and they don't do what they said they would do. She said, agreed. Thanks, BPR, and this Senator and Flynn, always bringing us the truth and plain so that we can understand it. Those were some of the comments. I also wanted to interject that Senator Collins, with regard to your meeting today, I don't know if you're cognizant of the most recent death at the Suffolk County House of Correction at the hands of correctional officers who was in restraint, Jacoby Kinney, and there's now people are calling those correctional officers out again with the notion of oversight of correctional officers, just like we have OPEP for the oversight of police officers, and you have the Post, right, for oversight on the state level. But there's people are feeling because people are behind the wall, there is no oversight. It's the sheriff. And so we're looking to see if that's something that we can address, because the lawyer who's actually representing the folks who witnessed this, this death of the person, they're getting threatened, they're being put in the hole, and they're feeling a lot of retaliation because the people have actually been protesting outside. They shut up their tablets, and so the lawyer is overwhelmed and saying, can she get more support? So I actually reached out to Sophia Hall from Lawyers for Civil Rights, but wondering if that's a place you're meeting today that we also could be able to get some support, or if you have any suggestions now in terms of lawyers that can be able to help her support these brothers and sisters behind the wall who are having inhumane conditions and the culture of violence that's ultimately also have people are dying from in the House of Correction.
A great question, great point. So we do have a commission on corrections that's looking at changes to corrections. There's actually a hearing coming up on February 9th. So on Monday, then I can share that with Larry and yourself, Pastor, and you can pass that along as well. And I think you may be able to get some information there. and feel free as well to they can call my office directly if they want to talk further.
So, Senator, I'm sorry. Does the state level? Because I know they have oversight at would South Bay be considered a facility that I know the reps have oversight on those as well, and not just at like Walpole and Norfolk? Or is there oversight there in those facilities as well as just in those institutions, but not Suffolk County?
That's a good question, because there is a distinction as well between the Suffolk County and the Department of
Corrections.
Right. But this was actually a law passed in 2024 that is examining all these, but it includes all correctional facilities.
Okay.
So not just the Department of Corrections, but also Suffolk County, Middlesex County, all the counties that have that are run by sheriffs.
Okay. We got about 4 minutes. Dr. Bradley, I'm going to give you a couple of those. Anything further for the senator?
Well, first of all, I would just commend him on just his honesty and being willing to come on here and educate our listening audience, because he educated me. I am still not resting well with this whole thing around assessment and property evaluation, because in my opinion, that is an avenue to disparity as well as racism. And so I just want to just say thank you, Senator, for making yourself available to the people that you represent. And I wish you were representing me in my area. But hopefully we have other.
You can always move back to Boston and take the abuse.
No, I don't make enough money, Barry. I don't make enough money.
You can move into that $20 million mansion and only assess it for 10. So you'll be happy.
I don't make enough money. I don't have your money, Doc. I don't have your money.
Okay.
But nevertheless, but thank you very much for your time, Senator. I appreciate you.
Well, Senator, we've got about a minute and a half. Again, we're not. We're asking. Like I said, I think you understand the need for this station, right, and the support financial. We're not talking about a lot, even in the private, if you help us out with that, because this is the type of information that informs our listening audience, but the people in the city of Boston and across the state. In fact, we had a call in this morning from Australia listening to this, and why an educated population is not dangerous but informed. Senator, okay, you get the final word.
Oh, that's absolutely amen, and that is, the crux of this. We're a stronger, better, more effective, more fair, more just, more economically, we have more shared economic prosperity when we have an informed population. And that's just, a centerpiece of why, we continue to focus on education in the Senate, because, we're a stronger city, we're a stronger state for that, and absolutely we'll try to find ways to continue to support. And I get a lot of information from your listening audience. For instance, when there was a need to support the NAACP when we were getting the convention here a number of years ago, I led the effort to get the first legislative earmark in the history of Boston branch of the NAACP to support that effort, because as an all-volunteer organization, didn't have the resources, at the ready to do that. Yeah. Or when, we found out that from your listening audience that there were writers of color who felt marginalized and segregated on a show that was being performed here in Boston, or produced here in Boston, or about Boston, and was getting tax credits. They were getting,
All right, Senator, I hate to interrupt you, but we've got to leave it there. We are out of time. I will see you.
We stood up and protected those folks. Thanks for the people on this radio show.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. Rhodes?
As Dr. Bradley would say, be blessed.
All right.
Thanks.
No, I came up from the bottom, always rooting for the
I wrote 300 songs in 1 year, Boogie will tell you I'm on it. I got unreleased songs for days, they don't want it. Eat any MC in the game, it ain't a challenge if your music reflects who you are, then you's a coward. I can see through the lies you ain't living what you spitting. If your money's so long, why your dog's in prison? Why your baby mom's stripping? Why your mom's still living in that same broken home that you used to sell piffin'? You ain't gotta lie to me to sell me a track. You ain't gotta rock fake jewels or walk around strapped. I respect artists getting money, but love them for spitting crack. And the fact that one track can move a family out the trap. It's a dream for us lost souls brought up in the mix. I'm motivated by the artists coming out in my midst. And the artists that paved the way when I didn't exist. Music's a skyscraper, I'm just trying to add a couple bricks.
This is for the dreamers. They say I am a dreamer. Cause I still believe that anything is possible as long as you work hard. Hustle real hard, hustle real hard. Hustle real hard, hustle so if I never see ya, never get the chance to meet ya, no, I came up from the bottom, always rooting for the under.